You didn't lose your motivation because you're lazy. You lost it because something inside you broke open. And here's the truth. No one talks about spiritual awakening. Doesn't make life easier. In fact, it can make it harder to exist in the world you once called home. See, after an awakening, a strange paradox unfolds. You begin to see the truth. You're not your career, your history, or your endless thoughts. And at first, that realization feels like freedom, like you've escaped a prison you didn't know you were in. But that freedom quickly turns into a void. It feels like life suddenly loses its purpose. If you haven't seen our last video on why spiritual awakening often steals your motivation, go watch it. It lays the emotional groundwork for what we're about to explore here. Because this isn't just about getting motivated again. This is about rediscovering meaning after the old ones fall apart. So stay with me, because what we uncover here might reconnect you with something deeper than motivation. It might reconnect you with yourself. Let's start with the raw truth. Awakening isn't just an aha moment. It's a psychological earthquake. Everything you built your identity around, ambition, validation, even your name, gets shaken to the ground. And when that structure crumbles, you're left exposed. What remains? Nothing but the raw self, and that can feel terrifying. This is the part nobody warns you about. Because awakening doesn't just lift you up, it breaks you down. Carl Jung called this the confrontation with the self. It's that shattering realization that your ego is no longer the one in charge. And that doesn't feel like liberation. It feels like death. In Jungian terms, your persona, the social mask you wore to function, begins to dissolve. But what replaces it is not clarity, at least not at first. It's confusion, a fog of identity, a sense that you no longer belong to the story you once lived in. And here's the thing, your mind will reach out, desperate to latch onto something. It'll cling to old beliefs, invent new spiritual ideas, or even spiral into depression, because at least those things feel tangible. But what if that emptiness isn't a mistake? What if it's an invitation? Keep that question in mind, because in part 2, we'll dive into what Jung believed was the real path forward after awakening. It's not about returning to your old self. It's about becoming who you truly are. And his approach just might change everything you think you know about healing. Part 2. So if the emptiness that comes after awakening isn't a mistake, what is it? Carl Jung believed this void, the absence of the old identity, isn't the end of the path. It's the beginning of a more authentic journey. But here's the twist. That journey doesn't go upward into light and bliss. It goes downward, into the unknown, into you. And this is where most people get stuck. They think awakening is the final destination. But Jung would say, it's only the doorway. The real work begins after the illusion falls away. Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Because once you wake up, the ego breaks open. And everything you've been pushing down, your fears, your trauma, your shadow, starts to rise. The issue is we've been taught to chase the light, but no one taught us how to sit with the dark. That's why you may feel numb, disconnected, or isolated. Your awareness has expanded, but it hasn't yet been integrated. This process, messy, uncertain, and deeply personal, is what Jung called individuation. It's the journey of becoming whole. It's not about escaping your human experience. It's about embracing it fully, shadows and all. Let's challenge a myth. Ego death is not enlightenment. It's identity trauma. The ego isn't something to destroy. It's something to mature. Jung didn't want us to kill the ego. He wanted us to grow it, transform it from a shallow mask into a conscious bridge between soul and society. So if you're feeling scattered or incomplete after awakening, that's because you are. You've cracked the surface, but the deeper structure hasn't been rebuilt yet, and that takes time. This is the point where many people check out. They numb themselves with distractions, cling to spiritual highs, or create new illusions to chase. But Jung's teachings were clear. The meaning you're longing for isn't outside you. It's in the parts of yourself you've been afraid to meet. So now the question becomes, how do we rebuild identity after awakening? How do we move forward when we can't go back? That's what we'll explore in part 3, how Jung taught us to reconstruct the self, not by returning to the past, but by becoming who we were always meant to be. We'll go into synchronicity, archetypes, and the quiet power of dreams. Part 3. Maybe you've felt it, that quiet ache. Like something inside you is trying to emerge, but you're suspended in between the past and the future, like you're standing at a red light that never turns green. Carl Jung called this the reconstruction of the self. And the truth is, most people never fully make it through this stage. They loop back into old patterns, or they drift in that post-awakening limbo for years, trying to distract themselves from the discomfort. But Jung made a surprising discovery. The way forward isn't about doing more or forcing motivation. It's about understanding the blueprint of your inner world. Let's talk about Jung's archetypes. These are universal psychological patterns that shape how we evolve. Think of them as ancient roles embedded in your psyche. The hero, the seeker, the caregiver, the rebel. They're not fantasies. They're pathways. The archetype you were living before, maybe the achiever, the perfectionist, the helper, may no longer fit. That's why everything feels pointless now. You're not broken. You've just outgrown your old story. And that's powerful. Because now, for the first time, you get to choose. Not from fear, not from conditioning, but from truth. Jung said our goal isn't to become good or enlightened. It's to become whole. That means owning all parts of you, your darkness, your wounds, your desires, your gifts, because real meaning doesn't come from chasing the light. It comes from integration. Here's something else Jung believed. Your unconscious speaks to you every night through dreams. Not just random images, but symbolic messages trying to guide your healing. That strange animal, that endless hallway, that recurring person. These aren't nonsense. They're fragments of your soul trying to reconnect. Start writing them down. Don't try to decode them right away. Just observe. Over time, you'll start to see patterns. Your subconscious creating a map of your becoming. When you follow those intuitive breadcrumbs, life responds. That's when synchronicities appear. The outer world begins to reflect your inner world. That's the alchemy Jung was pointing to. So now you're probably wondering, how do I live this in my day-to-day life? Because awareness is beautiful. But what about relationships? Responsibilities, reality? That's what we'll explore in Part 4, how to live your truth, build real meaning, and stay grounded even in a chaotic world. Part 4. Here's the hard truth most people don't admit. Awakening doesn't make you invincible. It makes you honest. And honesty is vulnerable. It's raw. It's human. This new awareness doesn't let you go back to autopilot. The world will keep trying to pull you into its games. Achievement, comparison, performance. But Carl Jung would say, your task isn't to fit back in. It's to live from your center. To do that, you need new tools. Not just motivational quotes, but inner frameworks to support the real you. Tool number 1, learn the language of silence. Our world is addicted to noise. Not just sound, but opinions, updates, validation. Even healing has become a performance. So when you sit in silence, no phone, no stimulation, just you and your breath, it can feel terrifying. But this is the portal. Jung said silence isn't empty. It's full of presence. Don't try to hear something profound. That's still ego. Just sit, let it be boring. Let the discomfort rise. This is your system detoxing from the noise. Eventually, a quieter voice appears. Not thoughts, but knowing. This is where your real guidance comes from. Tool number 2, reclaim your personal myth. After awakening, life can feel fake, like the game is rigged and nothing matters. But Jung said that's not the end. It's the call to remember your myth, the soul's reason for coming here. Think back. What lit you up before you learned to be afraid? What felt natural before shame entered the room? That's not random. That's your original language. You don't need a 5-year plan. You need to listen to that voice that keeps whispering, even if it feels foolish. That's your myth trying to break through. It won't look like anyone else's path. It's not supposed to. Tool number 3, turn your pain into art. Here's a myth. Creativity only belongs to the happy and talented. Jung would completely disagree. He believed creativity is how the soul heals itself. When you write, paint, sing, dance, even messily, you give your unconscious a channel. You release trapped emotion. You give chaos form. Don't wait to feel ready. Use your sorrow. Use your rage. Use your doubt. Let your emotions be paint, not poison. Not for perfection, for freedom. Because every time you express your truth, even in small, raw ways, you plant seeds of meaning, not just for you, but for others too. In the end, this journey isn't about returning to who you were. It's about letting go of everything that isn't you and living from the clarity that's left behind. Silence connects you to your truth. Your myth gives you direction. Creativity gives you the courage to embody it. Yes, awakening may cost you jobs, relationships, identities, but if they weren't real to begin with, were they really losses? What you gain is irreplaceable, meaning you discovered yourself. If this resonated with you, you're not alone. This path can feel isolating, but it's also one of the most sacred things you'll ever walk. Now here's my question. What's one truth you've had to face since your awakening that changed your life forever? Share it in the comments. Your story might be the light someone else needs. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Fractal Wisdom, a space for seekers, thinkers, and wild hearts building lives rooted in truth, not illusion.